Mamma mia. I know what you were thinking. You were thinking, he's late. Something went wrong. Is it actually going to happen? Well, I was running a little bit late, but I am here now. So, Joe, thank you for jumping in. You have not missed anything. And dear Jesus, it is about to start, but we're here. So let's get started. I'm doing my sound check now, just making sure everything's working fine. And the sound is working fine, so that's good news. So we'll just, I feel like that's probably going to mean that the sound will be picked up pretty good while we're doing this. Now, what's that, Joe? Fred, I got a brick of Mad Mage boosters, had a pretty good pull. Can't wait for the board game version to come out. If anyone wants to know what minis will be inside, I did some extensive research. Okay, good. Hi, Brandon, how's it going? All right, so I'm just going to jump over to the other screen. So you will find the start time for this video down in the description, so you can skip past all of my waffle. You know, I do a bit of waffle just before my live streams, and that's really just to make sure people have time to get in and make sure I have got everything working properly. Now, I normally, if you're not part of a live stream that I've done before, normally what I do is I present everything first, and then once I've presented everything, I then open it up for questions. How long will this live stream last? I would say probably about 10 minutes. But then again, I have not always been particularly good at estimating how long it takes to do anything. But I am all ready to go, and we will get started. All right, let's go. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and as it happens, I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons 5e for the Dungeon Master. For those of you who wanted some tidbits, some little hints, I'm using my variant rule. So for those of you who wanted to know, what is all this group initiative idea all about? Well, essentially, it's not in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's my personal variant rule that I use to speed up combat and just generally make life easier for myself. So, as I said, my own personal method of managing Dungeons and Dragons 5e combat and initiative. So I'm going to pull up a map and show you exactly what I've got here today. We're going straight to the jinx of it. I've got here the jungle temple, and we've got ourselves a young dragon here, a young green dragon. We've got our party members. I've selected a wizard, a fighter, a rogue. So I believe the wizard is over here. The fighter is up here. I know it looks like a barbarian. It's a fighter. This here is the cleric, and this is the rogue. And for whatever reason, you know, situation arises, they're exploring, and then suddenly you say, oh, you see a dragon moving through the rubble or the temple location. Roll initiative, because it looks like it's about to attack you, because it's just bellowed. Now, that's your opening, and then you say, okay, roll initiative. Now, normally what you do when you're rolling initiative is you get everybody to roll initiative, the Dungeon Master rolls initiative, and then you put everything into order. So you order up your initiative from highest to lowest, and whoever is at the top of the initiative goes first, which is all fine and dandy, and I don't have an issue with doing it that way, but I prefer to do things a little bit differently, and that is I usually get everybody to roll initiative before we even start the game session. I know that sounds strange. This is not an unusual technique. Many Dungeon Masters use this technique. So this is my method rather than using the conventional traditional method of doing initiative. What I will do is I will ask players to roll initiative, and often it won't just be one roll. I might ask for 5 rolls, and I will get them to write that down for me. So I'm at least one initiative roll before the game session begins. I usually keep it on a note paper, and that might have like a little tag or character tag for each player, so I know what it is. And I usually ask them with that character tag to write everything in pencil, because I expect for them to have to rub it out, or I usually get them to rub it out so I don't have to do quite so much work. They'll rub it out and write in a new initiative later on when we start a new combat. It just saves me time, so character tags are really good, and do it in pencil. Then you put everybody into order, highest to lowest, just like you normally would, and then we do something a little bit different. You place in your monster just like you normally would in the order with the player's characters, but don't have players wait. I know it's a turn-based game. I know it's a turn-based game, but get your head around the idea of not worrying about the turn-based, because the only reason to have a turn-based Dungeons & Dragons 5e game is if the Dungeon Master has monsters to play. And if the monsters don't have anything to do, then why do we need to worry about the cleric going first, the rogue going next, the fighter going after that, and then the wizard? It just depends on how the clusters are formed. So I usually just ask my players to just make a decision and then roll their dice. Tell me what you're going to do and then roll your dice. And you will get bombarded very quickly by those people who are well organized, but those players who are not well organized will take forever. And that's fine, because you're dealing with somebody else, and by the time they finally get their act together, you'll be ready for them, because you will have already worked your way through the players who were going to take their turn. So what does this look like? So you get a better idea. I'm going to roll some initiative. I've got some characters here. I've got some dice. I'm going to roll and write some numbers down. And so we'll start off with the fighter. So I roll my 20-sided dice. So I rolled an 11, and I'll take that 11. I'm going to add, it's a -1 for the fighter. I'm not going to even explain what that's all about. I know he's not wearing heavy armor. Just don't worry about it. It's not important. So -1, 11, initiative is 10. I'll stick it over here. We'll change the order in a second once I know what I've got. Okay, next initiative. I'm going to do for the cleric. So I roll a 20-sided dice. I rolled an 18. Okay, so the cleric's initiative modifier is -1 as well. So 18 less -1, 17. So there's the initiative for that one. Okay, and I'll work my way through the next character, and that is going to be the wizard. So roll for the wizard, 20-sided dice. I rolled a 15, and the initiative modifier for the wizard is a +2. So 15 plus 2 is 17. All right, so there we go, 17. So they're going to be on the same initiative, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. Now the thing is, for those people who are used to older versions of the games, look, just because the players have the same number for their initiative does not mean they need to make another roll to determine who is going to go first, or determining it based on who has the highest dexterity modifier or the highest initiative modifier. I normally just talk to the players and say, look, you guys decide who's going to go first. If there's an argument, then I might have them roll dice. But if there's no argument and they can come to an agreement about, okay, we're going to let the wizard go first, drop the fireball, and then the cleric's going to come in, then that's all fine with me. I don't have a problem at all. Okay, so let's go with the rogue next. Rogue has a modifier of +3. So that is 17 plus 3. That gives the rogue a 20. Kind of expecting that. And so we'll shuffle them down. There's our order. Okay, we're going to roll for the dragon next. Now the dragon it's a green dragon. It has a modifier of +1. So I roll my 20-sided dice. I didn't roll very well. I rolled a 7 +1. So I get an 8. So you can see right now, and this has actually worked out brilliantly for me. It wouldn't have mattered whether it was at the top of the initiative or the bottom of the initiative. This means that all of the players are essentially bunched up in one place. And I'm not going to get to take my turn to the end of the initiative. That means that the rogue, the wizard, the cleric, and the fighter, whether you did it in order or you did it all as a big bunch, as a group, it won't matter, because I'm going last in the round anyway. So normally what I will say to my players is like, rogue, wizard, cleric, fighter, take your turns. Tell me what you're going to do. Once you've done that, roll the dice. Roll the attack dice, roll the damage dice. Tell me what the spell save modifier, spell save DC is, and we just do it. And usually what will happen is you'll have a couple of people who will rattle off all their bits and pieces really quickly, and others who will like start looking through the book and deciding how the spell works. That's how I do it. Now, if I have too many people approach me at the same time, I say, okay, I just pick one. And I go through, okay, you've explained what you're going to do, roll your dice. While they're rolling their dice, I'm dealing with the next person. And that way, it speeds up the process. But I'm not sitting there waiting, and neither are the players sitting there waiting for somebody to take their turn when they should have been prepared already. Now, what this does is once they've all finished their turn, I usually have a piece of paper with the order of initiative on it, and I will tick off who has actually taken their turn, because otherwise I will lose, I won't remember specifically whether the fighter has already taken their turn in round 1, or maybe the wizard wasn't organised and still organising things, but the rogue's taken their turn first, then the cleric was organised, fighter went next, and then the wizard finally had their spell worked out, and they told me what they were going to do. So once that's all done, then I take my turn, and then we get back to the next round, so round 2, and I do the same thing again. And I've found, as a general rule, what will happen is the players will finish a combat anywhere from levels 1 through to about level 10 in about 5 minutes. I know you're thinking, Fred, you're full of it. What a load of BS. But trust me, it's like that. Now, what happens if you have another monster? So I've got a I've got another monster I want to chuck in here, and I thought what I would do is I would use a troll. I did actually ask for a whole lot of information from people about what their favourite monsters were, and I decided a troll sort of hanging out with a dragon, a green dragon, might make a little bit of sense. So I have selected a troll. Now the troll has a modifier of +1. I'm going to roll the 20-sided dice. Okay, so that means it's an 18 for the troll. And as you can see, I will grab the troll in a second. I know, and I will shuffle these along so you can see roughly where everything is. Okay, so it's bunched up again. So I take my, well, should I say, I don't take my turn. It's not bunched up again. I'm just going to grab the troll because I know it's around here somewhere. I know I didn't lose it. Ah, gotcha. Found him. There he is. There's the troll. Okay, so what's happened is now we've got the rogue separated from the rest of the group, and the dragon's right at the end. So what I will do is I'll say, okay, we've rolled initiative. Say we're in round 2 and a troll shows up, and I've slipped them into the initiative order. There it is. Round 2. Okay, I say, rogue, player, take your turn. And I just wait. They take their turn. I get to the troll. I make the troll do whatever it's going to do. And then when we get to the players here, there's a group here. Wizard, cleric, fighter. I say, okay, players, wizard, cleric, fighter, tell me what you're going to do. And we just work through them at the same time. And then at the end of round 2, I'll get the dragon to do whatever it's going to do. Probably fly around and breathe on them. And that's essentially how I run group initiative. It runs it very fast. I've found my players, almost every single player has been absolutely amazed at how quickly and fun combat has been. And because they can cluster themselves like this, they don't have to worry about using ready to actions quite so much. The ready to action often does not get used. They don't need to get annoyed that they can't hold an action, because there's no such thing as holding an action in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And they can conspire amongst themselves. The wizard, the cleric, the fighter can sort of conspire and sort of decide what would be the best way to make this work. And if they are all organised, that's what they'll do. But if they're not, the ones that are organised and ready to go, they just take their turn and get it out of the way. And the one that's slow, eventually by the other time the other two have had their turn, they're ready to go. So that's really how I run group initiative. It's really simple, it's fast, it's efficient, and it's actually not that difficult as a dungeon master to figure out. So if you found this video helpful or informative, and I really hope you did, then please like the video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already subscribed. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And I have many videos. So if you have stuff that you want to ask about player stuff or dungeon master stuff, I have heaps and heaps of stuff on all of that. There's hundreds of videos. Now, if you want to support my channel so I keep doing this sort of thing, then watch more of my videos. You helped support me by watching this video, and I do appreciate it. I know you had to sit through an ad probably. I don't do things like Patreon. I'm not going to do Patreon for 2019. I do have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon, where you can buy stuff online, and I get a small commission. You pay exactly the same price, and that helps get me funding so I can keep buying equipment and doing this sort of thing. Now, if you have questions, if you have feedback, if you don't like the system, if you have a better system, or if you have some suggestions to make it a bit more streamlined, by all means do that. Now, as I said, all of this rolling that I did before, I get all the players to do all of that well before the combat starts. And I often roll initiative for the monsters before a combat even starts, right at the very beginning of a session. I've only rolled the dice here just so there's something for me to do, essentially. So if you're part of the live stream, ask your questions, give your feedback, say hi. If you're not part of the live stream, that's what the comments section's all about. Just go down there, give your feedback there, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. I'm just switching over, and I'm really hoping that people like this. This really changes things a lot for those people who are asking a whole bunch of questions because they are concerned about how it will interact with some of the class features. Trust me, it'll be all right. Nothing will go wrong. Okay, here we go. I've already said hi to Joe, dear Jesus, Brandon, we've said hi already. Okay, Benny Bros. Hi, how's it going, mate? Venom Fang, is that you? It could well be. This could be Venom Fang. Or I have another green dragon, which could be Venom Fang if you like. But I feel like this feels more like a Venom Fang compared to this miniature here. Don't you think? I think this is definitely more Venom Fang than the other one that's standing up. That's just my opinion. Dear Jesus, it's the right size for Venom Fang. Yes, it is the right size. It's a young green dragon, so therefore the right size and the type of green dragon that Venom Fang would be. Benny Bros, what do you got here? And the right starting characters? Well, I suppose, look, to be fair, I think that a level 1 group who sticks with the basic classes will be fine. But, you know, it doesn't really matter too much. I think that a lot of the other classes can fill the roles. Joe was just rattling off all of the different creatures in the Mad Mage booster set. That's Dungeon of the Mad Mage miniatures, for those of you who are interested. So, yes, so you got quite a few. So, a Death Tyrant, Joe, nice. A Zombie Beholder, Skeladar, Hags, you got Black Cloak, oh, Hallister, wow. Merrill, Shadows, Grugs, Intellect Devourers, there's been so many in the different series they've pumped out. An Animated Sword, I think that's quite a cool pull though. Thugs, you can always use them. A Grey Ooze, hey, you could make a Grey Ooze, I'm not sure I'm that excited by a Grey Ooze, unless of course you are. A Zalthar, Thorbrid, oh gosh, and a few NPCs. Alright, sounds good. I like it. Okay, dear Jesus, feat. Alert is very nice for initiative and avoiding being surprised. Yes, absolutely. It is probably one of the key feats that most players will pick up if they pick up a feat, because most of the encounters they deal with the Dungeon Master, about 50% or more will wind up being an ambush where the Dungeon Master is trying to get the drop on them. If you don't get the drop on your players with your monsters are usually troll dung very quickly, so hence destroyed. The average length of combat, particularly at low level, is about 1 to 3 rounds. That's not a lot of time. So therefore, it's always good if you can you can go first. Initiative is hugely important. I was never completely convinced in Dungeons and Dragons 5e that initiative was really important, but getting a high initiative is. It just really is. And also being able to have surprise. Benny Bros, can monsters forego their action to double move like players? Well, yes, they can. So you use your movement, just like, so if my monster wants to move with their movement, they can, and they can use their action to dash if they want to. So that's all. That's just part of the dash process. So not hard to do. Dear Jesus, orcs have that ability. Have that as an ability. The yes, it's the aggressive. Yeah. So as long as they can see a hostile creature, they can use a bonus action to move their speed towards that foe, and that can be pretty scary. That means they can move about 3 times their speed in one turn or one round. Even though they might not necessarily be able to make any attacks, they can get across the battlefield really fast. So monsters can't dash unless it's stated. No monsters can always dash. They're just applying the basic core rules for combat. Using the dash action is just an action. So instead of using your action to attack, you would just move again. Okay, that's all it is. I have done a video, Benny Bros, on the dash action. If you type in Dungeons and Dragons 5e dash, you'll find it there. I think mine's about the only one, and I literally pull out miniatures and show you exactly what's going on. So if you type that in, you'll find it. Dear Jesus, up to the DM, I would say. Hey people, how's it going, Darren? Nice to see you there. Cussin. I hope have I got your name right? I don't know. I'm trying to pronounce it and keep it all together. Cussin. I think that's right. Cussin. How does this work with legendary actions? There are less turns, so less opportunities for monsters to take their turn. Okay, good question. It's actually a really good question. So this is what I would do. All that's going to happen is that as soon as somebody has told me, if there's a group here, so the wizard, the cleric, and the fighter, for example, are all taking their turn at the same time, whoever has taken their turn and done something, okay, if I still have a legendary action available to use, I'll use it once they've taken their turn. Even if the cleric is ready to go next. He'll say, look, I want to do this. And I say, no, I've got a legendary action. The wizard is finished already. Okay, I'm going to do this legendary action, and then I will go through and process what the cleric's going to do next. And then, once they've finished their turn, I'll do another legendary action if I've got one available and I want to use one. And then, if the fighter's ready to go and take their turn, great. So, with legendary actions, it will slow down combat. Okay, there's no way of getting around that because there's so much going on. But when you don't have a legendary creature taking legendary actions, it can be very, very streamlined and very efficient. It's all right, Darren. You can always watch it later. It's not a problem. What's that, Joe? I know you like these game box sets. I found them at a GameNerds.com for 50 unpainted and 110 pre-painted. Oh, I'm not sure what that's all about. I'll have to get back to that. Okay, what's this, dear Jesus? Ed Fred, are there any rules or home brew to change your position in initiative order? I don't usually, to be fair, I try not to change the initiative once it's established. Usually if I have a player show up late to my game, I won't have them roll initiative. I will just put them at the bottom of the initiative. And I've already explained to them usually that, look, if you're here late, I totally understand you might have been stuck in traffic, but we've already started, so I'm not going to then, rejiggy things if you've come in late. I'm just sticking you at the bottom of the initiative. They understand that. It's sort of part and parcel of life. I do have another variant rule for initiative, but I do not want to talk about it today because it is less successful and popular with players. This method is really popular with players, and I love it because it moves things really quickly. Joe, love this example, Fred. I probably use something like this to speed things up. It really does. It speeds things up a lot. Benny Bros, I watch most of your DM tips videos, Fred, but I really appreciate your player general videos as well, since I both play and DM. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't figured it out, I do both, and I will do lots of generic stuff. It does come up from time to time. I've already got so much stuff there. I'm trying really hard not to do the best and worst videos, but it's very, very tempting. Although if I do them, I'm probably going to get myself into trouble because I will probably take the piss out of it. Just can't help myself. But yeah, I know they're really popular, but I will definitely do more general videos in the future. I've got a couple of topics that are floating around in my brain that haven't really been talked about that much on YouTube or the internet. Also, you were right, Fred. You told me not to worry about my party taking on Clark, and they did fine. Yes, they look. Clark, there's been a couple of rare occasions where I've bumped into a dungeon master or a group of people who have Clark has cleaned them up, and it's usually been because the dungeon master rolled really well and they rolled like garbage, and that's really been the only reason. Killed his wolf round 1 and he ran for the chimney. Well, that'll happen, particularly if they are able to take out a lot of the goblins that are protecting him. And I know a lot of my players targeted the wolf first because they were concerned that if the wolf could drag them down to the ground, that Clark might decide to belt them with advantage with his great huge morning star. So hence they didn't want to have any bugbear using advantage on them. Speezer 007. Did I get it right? Speezer 007. Hello, man. Hey, your name is one of my favorites. I love James Bond 007. I've got all of his movies. So your selection of name I give you 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up for the name. Apart from the first part, which I'm Spurzer 007. A 007, I love that. That's a great name. Kasan, yo, how's it going? Okay, that clears things up. By the way, you pronounced it right. Kasan, thank you very much for telling me if I got it right or not. I appreciate that. Benny Bros, what do you do if the player and the monster tie for the initiative in your game? Good question. Really good question. Okay, so what happens if you get a tie and they both have the same initiative? Well, right now in the player's handbook, it states that the dungeon master decides who will go, whether it will be the monster or the player. And I always take the opportunity for the monster to go first. You can decide that you'll have a roll-off, get them to, you roll a 20-sided dice, they roll a 20-sided dice. You could use who has the highest dexterity or initiative modifier to decide who is going to go next. But usually when there's a tie between a monster and a player, I will always have the monster go first. And the reason, as I said before, is that as a general rule, unless you're playing like level 1 or 2, the advantage is actually in the player's hands because they will have more actions and be able to do more than anybody else. Just because of the rules around 2-weapon fighting and the fact that there are spells that allow for a bonus action and a cantrip to be cast in the same round. So those rules means that, an arcana can pop off 2 spells. Some of them might be attack, some of them might be utility or healing. Any character can make 2 attacks as long as they have the correct type of weapon in both hands. So hence, that's a lot of additional actions they can take. And if they have special features as well on top of that, the advantage is usually always with the players. Okay, I think that answered your question. Joe, Laugh Out Loud, sent you a message on Facebook to explain. Okay, cool. Thank you, mate. Darren, highest dexterity goes first, by the way. Well, now, as it happens, that might be your system, but as it is written in the player's handbook for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, it is actually decided. So if there's a tie between initiative scores, okay, so in other words, there's a tie. If it's between the monster and the player, or the dungeon master and the player, the dungeon master just decides who's going to go. That's all it is. And then if it's between players, they just have to decide amongst themselves. And it's really just putting the ballpark and a bit more control back into the dungeon master's hands, because initiative, as I said, where you go in initiative is really important. because most combats last about 1 to 3 rounds. I mean, as you get higher in the levels, you might get a combat that lasts 5 or 6 rounds. Very rarely do they last 10 rounds. I haven't seen that many. At high levels that can, but if you change your damage output for your monsters, then it changes again. Okay, here's a good question. Benny Bros, does a natural 20 beat a modified 21 for initiative? Well, no. If you roll a natural 20 on your dice, so for example, somebody rolled a natural 20 on their dice, and somebody else didn't roll a natural 20, okay, but they had an initiative modifier of, say, 2, and they rolled an 18 on their dice. So where's an 18? If I can never find it, my eyes are... there we go. So if you roll an 18 on your dice, no, 18, it's going to have to be a 19, isn't it, to make it work. So 19 plus 2 for your modifier. This character's only got a 0 modifier, so their actual score is 20, and this one is a 21. 21 always goes first. There's no such thing as a automatic success with an ability check, a skill check, or with anything like initiative rolls. That only applies to the attack roll. Okay, natural 20s automatically hitting and being successful only apply to an attack roll. Unless, of course, you got your own house rule. Benny Bros, my session ended with Clark climbing down the chimney only for my fighter to jump down, land on top of him, and now they both stuck at the bottom. He's going to get out but can't toss the fighter. Nice, I love it. Jano, how's it going, Jano? I'm not sure what your message was that was retracted, but if you got a question, something you want to say, just chuck it in there before I leave, okay? Darren, thanks for the correction, Fred. No, it's all right. Look, as I said, that's in the player's handbook, but essentially what that means is if you as the Dungeon Master, Darren, decide that dexterity modifiers are going to determine when there's a tie between initiative, is always going to determine who goes first, that's great. And if they both have the same initiative modifier, you decide, okay, we're going to have a 20-sided dice roll-off, and whoever gets the highest will go first. That's fine too. As I said, it's all about the Dungeon Master deciding how that works. The only thing that's predetermined in the player's handbook, which the Dungeon Master could change if they wanted to anyway, is that highest initiative goes first and lowest initiative goes last. It's the only thing. Okay, I'm about to lose my voice, but I'll work my way through these questions. Benny Bros also got my Pathfinder face cards. Oh, cool, they're really useful in the mail today, based off your videos. I'm excited to use them when they get to Phandalin. Now, I don't know which set did you get, because some of them are more useful than others. I found that the urban cards are wonderful. Some of the NPC cards are great. Enemies is all right, but some of the other ones just sucks big time. And I haven't done a review on every single Pathfinder face card deck because they're really hard to get sometimes. They go out of print. Dear Jesus, nice Benny. Those cards help a lot. Yes, they do. I often will stick a little post-it on the back of them and write down, bonds, flaws, personality traits, and ideals. Or often it'll be just, I don't have to worry about writing a description because I've got a picture that I can describe straight from. I might just put in a few secret notes or things that I need to remember, and that sort of helps a lot. Benny Bro, thanks for answering my question. Appreciate it. Not a problem, Benny Bro. Look, Benny Bros, that's the reason why I do these videos and why I do so many of them and why I do them live. I know some people hate live because live video means long video, and live video means it's not quite as clean and tidy and neat, and you don't get those fancy overlays and things like that. But I still think that it's a really good way. It's YouTube, man. This is what it's all about. YouTube is about people doing stuff, and it's not necessarily pro stuff. I know there's a lot of fancy channels out there, and it's not like I'm not capable of doing some of that stuff, but yes, live streams for me. Dear Jesus, if you want saved more time, you can pre-roll initiative for the monster. Just a tip. Yeah, well, I was talking, dear Jesus, about getting your players. You should do it, as a dungeon master, pre-roll initiative for your monsters by all means. But players, get your players to pre-roll initiative before you even start combat. And I will do anything from 1 to 5 rolls, and I just have them just line them up, and I just cross out the initiative as they use it in a combat, and then I'll work my way down the list that they have provided me with. Benny Bros. Got Reign of Winter. Okay, it's all right. It's very winter based, so it's very cold based. Everybody's in heavy warm clothing, so it's fine if that's the kind of campaign you're running. The society face cards are fantastic because it's full of noble people and other NPCs that you would just find in any kind of location, sometimes a city, sometimes a town. Yeah, much more useful, I found. I used the society cards a lot. Jano, how's it going? Do you ever fudge your initiative rolls for monsters to get them to go first? No, I don't. I've done a video on fudging dice rolls. I used to fudge dice rolls. I don't fudge initiative. I never ever did fudge initiative rolls because I don't care. Honestly, I've got more monsters. I couldn't give a rat's bum if the dragon dies. Okay, I just want them to have a good time, be challenged, find it exciting. I want them to be excited. And if somebody needs to die, whether it be a player or a monster, I don't care. And I'm not attached to the player's characters going down, because I'm not the sort of dungeon master who says, well, now that your character's dead, and because you haven't got the ability to raise yourself from the dead, you got to make a new character. I don't care about any of that stuff. So I just say, you tell me what you want to do, and we'll go from there. So yes, I don't fudge dice anymore. Just didn't seem any point. If I fudge in the dice, why am I rolling the dice in the first place? Anyway, I like the surprise. Darren, past my bedtime. Yep. Fred and friends, and have a good night. Yeah, good night, Darren. Look after yourself. Spicer007, is there a PC game out there that plays like the D&D 5e? Had to get a group together for the table game. Okay, so there is. There's Neverwinter. There's the online Dungeons and Dragons MMO, or massive multiplayer online game. They're all still running. They're still there. And of course, if you really want to be addicted and lose a lot of money, you can always go and play World of Warcraft. But I would say most of those games, Neverwinter will play much like Dungeons and Dragons 5e and Dungeons and Dragons Online. That particular game is a bit older, and I think that plays more like Dungeons and Dragons 4e. That's the fourth version of the game. So yeah. Benny Bros, what are your house rules for dice rolling? My players always like to try excuses for bad rolls. For example, it just fell and didn't really roll. My rule is, if it's on the table, it counts. Okay, so if it rolls off the table, I don't really count it. I'm not married to that. And I'm not really hugely dependent when I build encounters on their dice rolls, because I build the encounters based off the built-in abilities. So it won't matter how well they roll, the encounter will generally pan out a particular way. If I want it to be really easy, it'll probably be really easy. If it's going to be really hard, even if they roll really well, they're probably going to find it really hard. But given that, there's always surprises. Any dungeon master who thinks that they can pre-plan and have got combat encounter building down pat is wrong, because even when you think you've got it figured out, things change. Oh, what's that, Joe? I will just bring in reinforcements if it was way too easy. Yeah, well, you can. That's I did a video just recently, did a live stream, and I did the edited version of that on reinforcements. So Monster Tactics Reinforcements. That's the name of the video. Go check that out. I talk about that and I sort of do a little bit of a demonstration as well. Hi David, how's it going? My group has become so narrative with our gameplay and storytelling determines the order of actions happening, but we don't use minis either. Well, that makes a lot of sense, David. If you're not using miniatures, then narrative might be more what you want. And there are a lot of dungeon masters who are either doing it right now or playing with the idea of doing it, that it is just don't use initiative. They don't worry about initiative. They just do everything at the same time. So it won't matter if the wizard casts a spell in the first round of combat, because the troll is going to get to make their attack and the green dragon's going to get to make their attack anyway. And even if the green dragon does enough damage to knock down, say, the fighter, it doesn't matter because the fighter will get to take their turn in the first round. Does that make sense? So it's all married together. That requires a lot of skill from a dungeon master. My system is a lot easier to manage. What we're talking about is another step up in difficulty for you to work out. So I wouldn't try doing that straight away. What else we got here? But yes, sounds interesting, David. Dear Jesus, Dungeons and Dragons Online is based from Eberron. Yep, but in terms of the game mechanics, I believe it's more Dungeons and Dragons 4E, unless they've already updated it. Joe, video game Divinity? I don't know too much about Divinity. I can't play video games because it would end my life, essentially. I would just do that and you'd never see me on YouTube ever. Dear Jesus, dice tower, dice tray, or both help with rolls. Yes, particularly if the dice are rolling off the table. I usually get players to re-roll a dice if it's cocked, if it looks like it's cocked, and usually I get them to test it by putting another dice on top. If they test the dice to see if it's cocked and the dice slides off, then that's fine. I know it was cocked. But as I said, I'm not too hard and fast about that sort of thing. Jano said here, there is a Sword Coast Legends. Yes, I believe there is too. You're right. Yes, it uses 5e rules and it even has DM mode. That's right. Yes, you can change and modify your encounters as the game is being played. So I guess that's supposed to make it more dynamic, and trying to duplicate what you're doing at a table where you have total flexibility and can do pretty much anything you want. That gives you some, I believe Chris Perkins ran a few of those games for people at some point. They were trying out that particular program. Benny Bros, I got Mike's maps off his website for Lost Mine of Phandelver. Okay, printed all of the battle maps off my for my players. Okay, sorry. Thankfully, as a graphic design student, I have access to big printer at school. FedEx charges like $50. Ooh. Yeah, I've been wanting to sort of print those off myself, but I think the problem is going to be price for me. I've seen people do it. It looks really nice. It looks really pretty. Spicer 007. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've answered that question. Dear Jesus, how do you do Fog of War, Benny? Okay, I can't answer that question. I'm going to have to come back to Fog of War. I have an idea. Somebody asked me about 2 years ago how to do Fog of War on a table with a map that you've already drawn out. I have figured out how to do it. It's really simple, but I'll do a video. It's probably going to be better if I just do that, because I am about to lose my voice. Benny Bros, I use a lot of 8.5 inch by 11 inch paper, I believe that's what you're trying to say, to cover the maps. Exactly. What you can do is you can just cut the size of the paper that's going to go over your map to match the size of the room that it needs to hide, or the location that it needs to hide, and you just stick it down with a bit of blue tag and it's done. Okay, look, I'm going to head off, guys. I am going to lose my voice and I'm getting tired and I need to go and have some sleep. It's been a long day. I've got another day tomorrow. I will catch up with everybody. I believe it will be on Saturday for another Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide, because I said I would do one. What will it be on? I'm not gonna tell you, but I'm pretty sure it will be worth showing up, just because you get an opportunity to ask a whole lot of questions at the end. So have a good night, have a good morning, have a good afternoon. Look after yourself, look after your family, don't do anything stupid, and I will see you later. Thank you for everybody who showed up.